It may only contain 3 cards, but this tiny little pack is going to have a massive impact on the revitalization of the game at the LGS level. That's right, last week we saw the formal announcement of gem packs, which will usher in the next phase of local play with what I'm calling Armory Events 2.0. And sure, part of us will miss the posters, rotating promos, and of course the mats. But the trade-off? The gem pack structure and its inclusive nature will completely change both the game, but more importantly the tone of Armory Events going forward. A huge shout out to our channel members for supporting what we do here. If you want to get involved with the channel and the Dice Commando community, please consider joining as a channel member. Remember, these videos are only possible with your support. You can show that support with a like, a subscribe, and by leaving us a comment and sharing your feedback. Community first, and go Commando. I once had a coach tell me that when leading through change, it's important to be respectful of the past, realistic about the present, and optimistic about the future. And that statement always stuck with me, and I think it's so appropriate for what we're going through right now with the introduction of gem packs, which will become our new Armory event pricing structure come February. Something I'm very excited about, but I wanted to spend today talking about it and being respectful of what's worked in the past, realistic about where we are today, and then very optimistic about the future, including these gem packs. So there's no secret that the Armory event structure has been absolutely fundamental for the growth of this game, right? Sending free stuff to the LGS that they can put out for prizing, then charge money, and attract players to come play. There's zero doubt in my mind that without the Armory event structure from the very beginning, this game probably would have failed to launch. Right now, sure, there's a whole thing of what happened during COVID and all that, right, when we couldn't go to the stores, but there was online play and all that. But either way, right, the growth of the game, the massive growth of the game coming out of Monarch and into Tales really started at the LGS. And yes, this game sells itself from its competitive events around the world, the competitive World Tour circuit. It's the World Tour circuit, now we're calling it. But that, of course, is the title. But folks still need to go play at the LGS. They still need to be able to use their cards. And again, if we want to move beyond where we are today and continue to grow the game, it's going to have to happen at the LGS level, right? There has to be places for people to play, right? So again, the Armory structure has been incredibly important for that. But there's no denying that over the last, year and a half, 2 years, you can debate the timeline, and it's probably different by area for sure, right? Your different locals. There's no denying that we've started to face some challenges, right? And by that, what I mean is the over competitiveness, whatever you want to call it, it started to actually drive the grind, let's just call it that, did start to actually cause problems for some local TOs, where they were actually having problems maintaining new players, and it was just about the cold foil. Now, what I'm showing up right now is a graph of the gem history. That's right, this is the Armory tournament history that I pulled through gem, had to do it manually. This is the entire history from start to finish of the Armory events at Gongai Games that I run. What you can see is we were growing pretty good, but then about 2 years ago, you started to see a decline. And what I did to actually change things up after talking with people, why don't you come to Armories? Why did you decide to step away? And there's, of course, life and money, and I just, game complaints. But functionally, they were tired of just facing the most competitive deck every single week, right? They didn't feel there was variety. The same person was getting the cold foil. So change I made earlier this year was now, instead of giving out the cold foil to the winner and rainbow foils to the top 8, I would still do rainbow foils to the top 8, but the cold foil would be raffled off. And you can see there on that chart very clearly what's happened to my Armory attendance since, right? I take a lot of pride in how we approach a very inclusive atmosphere at my Armory. But again, the data speaks for itself. Once we moved it to something where you still had a chance, and it wasn't that there was a discouragement to bring the Smash Face deck, but there was no encouragement to do so. And we actually started to see not only more people, but more variety, and then that fed the whole thing, right? So to that point, there is no doubt in my mind that a more inclusive atmosphere, be it prizing or whatever, but mostly led by prizing, because again, it's not a discouragement, but there's no encouragement to the opposite. There's zero doubt in my mind that a more flat prizing structure will be more successful, right? And enter, of course, the gem packs. So gem packs are replacing the Armory kits that we've known and loved for the last 5 years of this game. And one of these packs is going to include 3 cards, which will be alt arts, cold foils, EAs, whatever it may be, art cards, whatever it may be, right? And just because Gem Pack 1 is going to have, Gem Pack 1.0, you know what Gem Pack 2, 3, and 10 will hold, right? But this is a good way. Everyone who shows up is going to get one of these. And actually, through their marketing, I do want to say I have one little complaint about it. The marketing says win at your local Armory event from February 2025. And I'd actually argue that it's bad marketing because you actually earn it, right? You earn it by showing up. I would actually argue that by putting win on there, it actually might make people think that you have to show up and perform. But no, right now, the intention, right, as published by them, okay, Gem Packs will reward in-store participation over performance, giving players at all levels equal opportunities to open the chase cards and offering an awesome incentive for newer or casual players to join in on the fun. Okay, this gives stores flexibility, lets everybody come in, get the equal chance, and it just promotes play over pricing. And it's very hard to not understand why, or it's very hard to not at least extrapolate why that could end up being a very good thing and solving a lot of problems that some store owners have been dealing with. Okay, so this is a tonal change for armories, right? Armories, by and large, because of the performance-based pricing that many were doing, was a mini, for many, or for some, it was and by many, I mean MANY. For many players, it was a mini Worlds, right? That's how some people viewed it. And now it's really about getting together and playing Flesh and Blood in the Flesh and Blood. And I think that's really good. So what might be in these babies? I have some maybe not theories. I have some hopes. I think there's going to be some cool stuff in there. But what I would like to see more than anything, I don't care about the treatments and stuff. I want to see some of the off-product exclusives come in these packs. And I think this would be a really good way to do it. What I'm talking about is stuff like Sizzle, Static Shock, Tiger Eye Reflex, Mauling Shi, right? Or Glistening Steel Blade even. Something that, something I think that's been a big negative over the last year and a half or so is the product exclusive. There's the whole argument against product exclusives, and that's not so much what I mind. I don't necessarily mind them having a exclusive card in a product. What I do not like is having to buy multiple of that product in order to get my playset, right? And, the Glistening Steel Blade, it was its thing. The Mauling Shi and Tiger Eye Reflex, right? And basically the whole, Bittering Thorns, it feels really bad to have to buy a $70 product twice. Well, I guess you'd have to buy 3 of them for every 2 people, but you get my point. That feels really bad. And even so, with the First Strike decks, being required to buy 2 First Strike decks, or I guess 3 amongst 2 players, I suppose. But you understand what I'm saying, right? Being forced to buy multiple of the same product to fill out your playset felt really bad. And I think this is a really good way to do it because now they can foil Sizzle, right? Plus, there's a lot of those cards that there is no foil version because they weren't, or no foil version yet, because they weren't in, a product as such. So, Mauling Shi foil, what a great way to do it. I don't think we're going to see unique cards. It could happen for sure. But anyway, let me know, do you agree? Do you like my theory that we could, get these off-product exclusives and the treatments thereof in these packs? It seems to make a lot of sense to me, but what else let me know below. What else do you think is going to be in these packs? All right, so I've been sitting here touting how amazing it is, and it is amazing. I'm very, very, very excited about it. But as with anything, there's positives and negatives, right? So there's a couple things that we need to watch on this. And the first and most obvious is the initial allocations. And so they've gone through and they're pulling, I think, like 60 or 90-day gem history, and they're looking at the number of players you've had, and they're going to give you, in theory, they're going to be allocating enough for you, and by you, I mean your store, to be able to say, okay, if you average 8 players a week, you'll get, each quarter you'll get basically, I think it's coming in 2 months increments and not a quarter, but point is you'll be shipped enough or allocated enough such that you can have 1 per player per week on average. That's really good, as long as the math is done correctly. But also, I think we do need to consider and remember that this is going to be very popular, right? At least out of the gate, it's going to be very popular. So if they're basing it off of the last 90, my point is I really expect Armory attendance to really pop next year. You have a lot of folks who are just like, I just stay home and play on Talishar and grind for the tournament with my, team. You've got that. You've got folks who don't come every week, but everybody's going to want these. Everybody's going to start showing up. It's going to change the tone of the army. Again, go back to my chart, my data, right? Once we started making it more inclusive, more people started coming. So you're going to get that, plus people coming out because they want to just grind the packs. You know us, we're all addicts in a certain way. We like to rip those packs open. We're going to go for that. So I do expect that most stores through, let's say Q1, right? This starts in February. So I think that's fair. Let's say through Q1, I think you're going to see a lot of stores run short on these near the end. So they'll probably be running armories near the end of the cycle where they won't have pricing. So that could backfire, right? Where if the gym packs are really awesome, right? So people will come out, the gym packs will be really awesome. They'll be in high demand, which will bring more people to the armories. But then just as it's starting to hit peak, stores are going to run out, could run out, right? So, and then folks would be like, oh, well, then, take a month off, you forget. Now you're not going until Gym Pack 2.0 comes out and it's got the cool Prism card you want or whatever, right? So I do think that's a risk, and it's something to watch. I do know what my allocation is for Gongai. I don't think it's enough. It's based on, again, average, which is fair, but whatever. So we were allocated an average of 12, and you can see from my graph that I'm above 12, right? So I'm worried about that. And again, that's just my unique situation. But I'm also worried about, not just the growth, but like a lot of these smaller stores, like they might only get, 2 or 3, if you have let's say you have 4 folks that show up every week pretty consistently, maybe you miss a week or 2 in there. Well, now you're at an average of 2 or 3 packs or something like that. And that's if you're even high enough to get the allocation. So you could see this again, kind of this downside of it where the stores that don't get them just die, right? Because if you're being allocated based on your play and you can't get people in the door, so hopefully there's some sort of system in there where you get a base allocation, right? Something like that. And again, I don't, there probably is, because LSS usually thinks about stuff like that, but will it be enough? I don't know. So again, this is all a positive. I like the way they're doing it. They're trying to make sure that the market's not flooded, because the more exclusive they are, the more people want to go to the stores to get them. I mean, to be clear, there's going to be a butt ton of these out there, right? But you don't want to, just laying on the street corner. Otherwise, no one's going to go. So it makes sense to be tight with them. And again, they're free. So LSS has to protect their money too. But we need to, it could potentially backfire on certain stores. Let me say this. I could see a situation it could backfire in certain stores, right? So that's just one thing to concern. So, but we'll have to watch it, right? And again, it's going to get people out, right? And actually think about it. It's like a good it's not a good problem to have, to not have any. But if you're allocated 100 packs and you go through 100 packs in a couple of weeks, that means people are coming out and playing. So it's shown itself to be successful, and then they can iron out the kinks later, right? So there will be some growing pains there for sure. I think the last part, and I've seen this from a number of people around, most people are just extremely positive on this, extremely positive, extremely excited, myself being one of them. Some folks have expressed their sadness at the ending of the Armory kit, specifically the playmats. And I do think that's fair. But I challenge us to look at it from a different perspective, in that just think about it realistic, right? There's only so many pieces of art per set. There's only so many pieces of art that would translate to a playmat per set, which is less than that. Translate well to a playmat. And they're starting to grow more and more and more events, right? Where they like to have exclusive promos for callings. They like run battle hardens. They like to end whatever it may be. So what this will do, or can potentially do, is let them reallocate what would have been, your monthly Armory promo. Now maybe that's the, monthly battle harden promo, or the monthly calling promo. Or maybe, you have more event exclusive mats, right? As opposed to having a seasonal mat for big events, maybe each event has its own mat that you can go get. And that's pretty simple. The callings are doing that right now anyway. So you can see this shift, and yeah, sure, it would be a lot easier to go to your LGS and hopefully win one in a raffle, but it does let LSS allocate more variety to the events to encourage people to go to bigger events as well. And I think it'll work out better for all of us in the long run if people, start going to the battle hardens and stuff like that. So I get it, for all of us, there's a bummer portion of it that things are changing to that regard. But I'm pretty optimistic, again, to bring us back to my point, I'm pretty optimistic about how that can work to our advantage, right? And how they can turn that, again, those event exclusive promos and stuff like that, make it worth going to these things, encourage people to go to these things. I think that there is a world in which that actually works out as a positive, right? So anyway, with that said, gym packs are just great. I mean, other games have done this. I want to give a shout out to Sloop Dupe. Him and I actually talked about, he had floated this to me like, I don't know, maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago. We talked on his channel. He had asked me about this. I'm like, yeah, actually, it sounds like a pretty good idea. And, you know, other people talked about it as well. And here we are. And it doesn't matter that other games do it because it seems to be working. And Flesh and Blood always tends to do it better. Now, don't they? So it's pretty exciting. And I cannot wait for February to see what's in some of these babies. Very exciting. Let me know if you agree, what you're excited about. Nothing else, my friends. Happy Flesh and Blood Friday, and go Commando.